Space Marine 2, apart from a game title I never thought I'd be saying, is a game that recently came out and I've been absolutely hyped for since it got announced, I think maybe early last year or late 2022, and I have had it on my radar ever since. Now don't hate me for this, but I actually pre-ordered a game in the year 2024. But I only pre-ordered it like 2 days before it actually came out. Now the reason was, I thought I could pre-download the game, so when it came out, I could just play it. Because there was already people who had pre-order copies, like if they bought a certain edition, they could play the game early or whatever, reviewer copies, etc. So I could see people literally streaming the game. So I was like, okay, I think I can install it so that when it comes out, I can play it. I can't, and I couldn't, but anyway, moving on. The point was there is that it's one of the only games I have ever pre-ordered. That's how hyped I was for this thing. It was this, and it was Titanfall 2. And as you probably know, Titanfall 2 is one of the most underrated gems of this era. So Space Marine 2 is a game that I have been waiting to come out for years. Now when I say years, I am not underestimating it. It's not hyperbole. I've been waiting for it to come out since around 2013 or late 2012. I first got Space Marine 1 back in late 2012, early 2013. And it was one of them games where I never knew what Warhammer 40k was really beforehand. I sort of had a grasp on Warhammer 40,000 as in like I knew the basic premise of it, but I never played the tabletop game. I never played a actual video game form of it. And after this game, I actually got into the tabletop for a while. So that's how much this game had an influence on me. And I absolutely loved it. I never could play Gears of War because I was on PlayStation. So this was sort of the closest Gears of War-esque game that I could play at the time. And I fell in love with everything to do with it. And then it just sort of faded. Because I got the game late, nobody talked about it. And you don't really have as much social talk about video games back in the day that you do now. Things don't really stick around. You know how people were hyped about Valorant or Helldivers or whatever, and they would just constantly talk about it? You didn't really get that with games back in the day. People would talk about it, but it wouldn't really be a massive thing online. So games would just sort of remain popular, or they'd fizzle out. Like Halo, the reason why Halo was so impressive was because it remained that popular for that long. So yeah, a few years passed and I was just sort of like forgetting that this Space Marine game existed. And then in 2018, a YouTuber called Chapter Master Valrak made a video about making Space Marine great again and asking about getting a sequel. He made a part 2, 3, and even 4 to this, getting loads of views, and even getting one of the official devs from the game to respond to him on Twitter about his videos. He had a massive impact on the player count, as you can see from the Steam charts of this month, getting the player count to over 12,000 at its peak, which compared to the hundreds it would usually get, 300, 400, in the tens of thousands was incredible, and I was one of them players. I had recently gone from PlayStation to PC and then wanted to play this Space Marine game with everyone else because I hadn't played it in years and just really wanted to grind back to the max level again because you couldn't really do it anymore. There was only like 100 players online at any one point. So yeah, 6 years ago was the last time I played any Space Marine game and could play any Space Marine game online. A few years pass, nothing again, and I'm sort of thinking this Space Marine 2 game that we were all wanting is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. We've dreamt about it. It's been over 10 years at this point. And then it actually happened. It got announced. Space Marine 2. And when I say I absolutely fucking shat myself, I am not joking. I was like, nobody expected this announcement to drop, least of all me. And from that point forwards, whenever they announced the date, it was a countdown to that date. So yeah, just showing the slight bias I have towards this game because I have been waiting this long for it to come out, and honestly I never thought it would ever even be conceived, let alone have a date planned, let alone release, let alone me be able to wield it in my hands. So yeah, let's talk about it. So this isn't a review per se, it's just me saying negatives, positives, things I would improve about this game, and the difference between the first and the second game just from my experience. First impressions, you could say. So much like any typical 2010s game or any Call of Duty game of the 2010s, There is 3 main modes to do with this game. You've got your campaign, which is your typical nonsense. You've got your co-op, which is your typical nonsense. And you got your PvP, which is your typical underwhelming nonsense, especially for a game that's based on what it's based on. I really want to talk about the multiplayer first, because do I have a few things to say about that. But I will talk about the campaign first, and then I'll slowly trickle my way through everything else, because the campaign is the meat and bones of this game, first and foremost. So the campaign, for me, was probably the biggest part of the game that I was most excited for, at least at the very beginning. Because the first game left on a massive cliffhanger to do with Titus, Leandros, the Inquisition, la-di-da-di-da, Graya, bim-bim-bim-bum-bam. The thing was, for me, is knowing that a different team was on the second game compared to the first game. If you didn't know, THQ, a company that does not exist anymore, made the first game. And this game was made by Saber Interactive. Once again, completely different team to THQ. So it was nice to see what they would do with the story, whether they would completely continue the story from the first game, whether they would just make references to it, because Titus is 100 years older than he was, or whether they would just ignore it completely. And it was nice to see the subtle nods to the first game, and also the actual just general references to the game, and then also continuations from the first game. I'm not going to spoil anything now, but if I do spoil anything in this video, because I have to in a fit of rage, I will say this is a spoiler, skip ahead to here if you don't want to hear it, etc. If I do that, I don't know if I'm going to do. Things I liked about the campaign. When talking about it in a bubble, it's very impressive, but when you compare it to the first game, it is extremely impressive. If I went back and played the first game now, I would be underwhelmed, to say the least, by some of the environments that the first game has to offer, the scale that the first game has to offer. It really feels, in the first game, like you are part of a small team. You don't see any of your ships. There is barely any Cadians on the planet. You don't see any of the Space Marines until the very end of the game. There is barely any drop pods. There's no tanks. It feels very small. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like there's a lot going on. It feels like what you're doing is the main plot of the story. And obviously it is, but it doesn't feel immersive in the way that it's a big battle and you're just part of it. You're doing your own thing. It feels like you are the thing that's going on the planet, and there is nothing else happening until you get there. The second game, oh my fucking god. Just look at some of these set pieces. You walk into a story set piece or an environment and you instantly think, holy shit, there is like 100,000 Tyranids, about 50,000 Cadians, and about 70 Space Marines here. What am I gonna do? It makes you feel like you are part of something bigger than yourself. Even though you are the main point of the story, you don't feel like the main bit of the battle. You feel like you are part of a battle, not the battle, which is really nice. The characterization. Now, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I really liked the voice acting in the first game from everyone. It felt a lot more calm from a lot of the characters than it does in this game. In this game, I think it's more lore accurate because everyone's just fucking shouting all the time. They're all like, ah, we need to get to this objective. We're gonna kill everyone. Ah. But the first game, especially Titus, played by Mark Strong, I believe, he had such a commanding calmness to him that I absolutely loved. And in this game, he just sounds like he's pissed off all the time, which I get. 100 years difference can really do that to a man. Like, if you're 100 years older and you've basically been tortured for 100 years, you're probably going to be a bit more pissed off. But just looking at his face in the first game, looking at his face in the second game, he goes from kind of annoyed, calm captain to fucking pissed off, want to kill everything in sight lieutenant, which honestly same, but I feel like the voice actor for Titus in the second game, while he did a great job with what he had to work with, because you have to sound sort of similar to the guy in the first game, you can't just sound completely different, you have to remain a similar character. It's just that bit different that if I went back and played the first game, they sort of feel like two different characters in a way.
Titus to Resilient. Requesting Gamma Pat and Hammerfall bunker on my location immediately.
You mean to jump? Request confirmed. Stand by.
There's our entry.
Leave my brothers and the lieutenant alone. I will come with you.
resist the touch of chaos, but I swear I will discover the truth.
We will discover many truths, Space Marine.
A black shield.
You would erase your chapter markings. I would die for these colors.
Then why?
I was accused. It was my penance.
What were you accused of?
Corruption.
Brace for landing.
The Codex Astartes warns that those in league with Chaos can withstand the warp's touch.
You forget yourself, Ultramarine.
Leandros, I do not take this warp resistance lightly. But the search for answers must wait until after we deal with this chaos invasion.
What if that is too late?
Leandros,
Shut the fuck up! Now, when it comes to your little buddies, your battle brothers, you had Sidonus, Sergeant Sidonus in the first game, and then you had Private Leandros, compared to, I don't really know their ranks, Gadriel and then Chiron in the second game. What do I think? Well, Leandros is a little bitch. We can just put that one out there first and foremost. But my favorite character out of all of them is probably Sidonus. He comes off as one of them really experienced sergeants that just really can't be arsed anymore. Doesn't want to put up with everyone's shit and always has a plan to do stuff. Whenever I was around Sidonus in the first game, I felt like I was safe. Even though I was the captain and I was the main character with all the health, when I was next to Sidonus, I felt like my life was chill and nothing could go wrong until... and it did. The second game, the characters I feel like are better characters, right? The first game are better Space Marines, but the second game they are better characters. They have more emotion, they have ups and downs. I especially love, just because I'm one of them giddy ass people like, oh my god, they referenced this, when they are really suspicious about Titus and his heretical episodes, etc. There are a few parts of the game where I don't really understand what the characters are doing, and it just sort of never gets mentioned again why they did that, and then it never gets resolved. Now, I know I said no spoilers, but I was literally just about to mention something that would have spoiled the game so heavily. And also, I'm about to talk about something that I need to talk about, but it is also kind of a spoiler warning. So if you really care about not getting spoiled on the game, do not watch this bit. Skip ahead to the timestamp right now. But other than that, why are you here? If you go play the game already, Jesus Christ. Towards the end of the game, it's sort of where I got a bit confused as to what was going on. The Tyranid threat just sort of goes. You kill the Hive Tyrant and then, boom. Don't have to worry about them anymore, because you're Chaos enemies, even though this Tyranids are still there, and they're probably going to do some more damage, but fuck it, Chaos is here, so fuck them. The only thing that I hated about the introduction to Chaos was the fact that, similar to the first game, they just sort of warp into existence and are like, yo, we're here now, fuck you mean beat, we're gonna kill you. And then they don't kill you, and then you end up killing them. But the intro scene, I don't know why, but Bricky made a video on it as well, and he sort of mentioned the same thing I was thinking. It's just sort of like, they just sort of appear, and then they're there, and then you just start fighting them. Like, there's no speaking, there's no, you false god worshippers will do, nothing. It's just, they just walk through a portal, sort of meme stare you into oblivion, and then that's it. Just cuts to you shooting at them, which I guess would be lore accurate. They would just appear and you just start shooting at them, but they would at least say something, an introduction to anyone. Like, no, I just felt a bit underwhelmed when they appeared. Like, I knew they were coming because it's a fucking Space Marine game. They're going to introduce Chaos because they have to. You're playing as them in the multiplayer, so, you know. A bit on the underwhelming side, especially considering you're literally fighting the Thousand Suns, which are one of the most interesting warbands of Chaos that you can fight. Then that relates directly to the main boss of the game, which, you know, the Hive Tyrant, you take it out in multiplayer, so you don't actually take it out in the story. That's not really a character. You can't really make a character out of Tyranids, right? Because it's a Hive system. There is no talking Tyranids, at least not of this kind. So you can't have the main villain be one specific Tyranid, you know what I mean? So they have to have like a villain that will have much more of a presence and character than the Tyranids can have, which is why they introduced this new Chaos guy, and I cannot remember his name to save my life. That's how memorable he was. Literally took me searching up the main battle of the final boss fight in the fucking campaign to find out his name is Imura. Yeah, that's kind of unimpressive if I can't remember the main boss's name. Yeah, he also just kind of appears. I like the build-up, right? The entire scene with the traitor and shoot him, and that was really impressive. I really liked that. It was very tense. And then he just sort of appears, and it's in a way, it feels like the game devs or the game itself expected you to know who this guy was. And I don't think that he's a very well-known character in the 40k lore anyway. So I don't really understand what was going on. It's sort of like when a guy leaves your high school and he was like the most popular kid in school, and then he comes back like 10 years later and is like, I am here, and expects everyone to know who the fuck he is. But nobody does, because he's been gone for years. Although I believe that the character could have been great, because his voice lines are amazing. When you're running around and he's sort of telling you things like, you need to leave, the Emperor is being terrible to you, da-di-da, all that chaos bullshit. That was really interesting, and it really made me want to shoot him in the face. But the character himself, there was not really any motivation, you could say, towards anything. He just wanted to be chaos, and that was it. Disappointing. Overall, though, I am overly impressed by the campaign. The gameplay is one of the things that I am so impressed with compared to the first game. Though the vibe is very similar, there is a lot of things where if you went back and played the first game compared to the second, where you really feel like they've improved. There's a parry system now. You can shoot enemies in the face if you dodge them perfectly. But there is a problem with the executions. In the first game, if you execute an enemy, you get health back. Your shield regenerates by itself if you're not in combat and you're not getting shot at, after a delay of around 5 or 10 seconds, I think it is. In the second game, it's a bit different. When you execute an enemy, it refills, well, at least in the multiplayer, 1 bar of your armor. I'm pretty sure in the campaign it is all of your armor. No health. The only way you can regen your health is by the stims. Now, there were stims in the first game which regened, but I don't agree with the stims system and how they made it so executions only regen your shields. Especially when you're playing the co-op, which I will get into, but you just don't feel like doing an execution ever. There's not really a point, because your shields regen. The only reason you do them is if you're in the heat of battle and you need the armor, or it looks cool.
Die!
Once again, especially in the multiplayer, if your armor's full and you have fuck all health, if there's an enemy there, in the first game, you're like, oh my god, yes, 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 I can get my health back, oh my god. The second game, you're like, well, I've already got all my armor, so I'll just shoot them in the face, but you have no health. They, in my opinion, need to change it back. Especially in the harder difficulties, you need health, and the only way you can get them is by using stims. You can carry a max of 2 stims, which only just regens your health to full. They either need to swap the mechanic back again, or make it so there is some way of gaining health back. There are perks for characters that make it so they can gain health back, but I mean as a general mechanic, not as a perk that can occasionally give you health back from one specific character class, but a general gameplay mechanic that will always happen regardless of the class, regardless of the mode you're playing. Now, I absolutely loved the Tyranids in this game. The World War Z patented mechanic of, oh my fucking god, they're coming, what the hell are we gonna do? They're clawing their way over the walls and trembling over each other, we're fucked, we're fucked, we're fucked. Oh my, I absolutely love that. Which is why I preferred the gameplay segments with the Tyranids compared to the Chaos Space Marines so much more. There was more units for Tyranids, but also they were just so much more fun to fight. You need to have those enemies that you can kill loads of them at once, but there's just so many that they just over encumber you. Similar to Orcs in the first game and the Chaos then. It sort of slowed down the pace so much in the first game compared to the Orcs. And it's similar here. As soon as you run into Chaos, it's like you hit a brick wall and it's not as fun anymore. But you can't just make Chaos Space Marines easy to kill, because then they wouldn't feel like Space Marines. It's a very double-edged sword. Now, whilst I can't talk about the gameplay enough and praise it enough, it's just so fun and I just want to go and play more of the game right now. I'm going to go and talk about general things to do with the game that aren't just to do with the gameplay, just things I noticed in general. So much like when you play any game where you have shooty, stabby, stabby, kill, especially when it comes to a Warhammer 40k game that's third person and involves Space Marines, you're going to want to have a few things. Sick weapons to shoot things with, including shooty and stabby. Sick armor to run around with, that includes great customization of it, and also great progression. Now, once again, I'm going to be directly comparing us to the first game, because when this game was announced, all I thought in my head was, please make the system the same, or just a bit better in terms of the armor, the customization, the weapons, and the progression. So, weapons are a bit of a weird one, because there are certain weapons in this game that, one, I didn't even know existed, because I haven't really been involved in the Warhammer 40k universe for a while, and two, there are weapons that I definitely thought would be included in this game, but just aren't for some reason. You've got a lot more bolters in this game, which are now not called bolters anymore for some reason. They're called bolt rifles, which in my opinion just sounds stupid. And also a lot of them just feel like the exact same weapon, just with a different fire rate and accuracy. So I don't really understand why they had them as separate weapons. It sort of feels like they're trying to expand the amount of weapons on the list, even though it's not, it's just a bolter with a different attachment on it. So, without further ado, because it took me quite a long time to make this list, here are Space Marine 1's weapons compared to Space Marine 2's weapons. So, Space Marine 1 has 8 melee weapons. You've got the combat knife, the chainsword, the relic chainsword, the power axe, the chain axe, bro, the chaos just sounds so much cooler in this game, holy shit. Actually crazy. Power sword, thunder hammer, and the daemon. Space Marine 2 has 6 melee weapons. The combat knife, chainsword, power sword, thunder hammer, power fist, and, if you count it, foot. Space Marine 1 has 2 pistols, that being the bolt pistol and the plasma pistol, with Space Marine 2 having 3 pistols, the bolt pistol, the heavy bolt pistol, and the plasma pistol. Space Marine 1 has 10 light weapons, the bolter, the Kraken bolter, the relic bolter, the stalker bolter, demon eye bolter, the storm bolter, the twin bolter, the plasma gun, the vengeance launcher, and the melter gun. While Space Marine 2 has 13 light weapons, the bolt rifle with underslung grenade launcher, the auto bolt rifle, the heavy bolt rifle, the stalker bolt rifle, the bolt carbine, the marksman bolt carbine, the instigator bolt carbine, the oculus bolt carbine, the bolt sniper rifle, the plasma incinerator, the melter rifle, and the las fusil. These why did I say it like that? Space Marine 1 has 4 heavy weapons: the auto cannon, the heavy bolter, the las cannon, and the plasma cannon. Space Marine 2 also has 4 heavy weapons: the heavy bolter, the heavy plasma incinerator, the multi-melter, and the pyre blaster. And finally, we have the equipment/grenades. Space Marine 1 has 3 types of equipment: the frag grenade, the blind grenade, or just the blue grenade as I call it, and the combat stimulants, which are part of the grenades and not their own thing like they are in the second game. Space Marine 2, on the other hand, has 4 grenades: the frag, the shock, the crack, and the melter bomb. Now, the one thing I notice from both games is that a lot of the light weapons they have are literally just bolters or just different versions of bolt rifles. Like, for example, Space Marine 2, there are 13 light weapons, which basically just means not weapons on heavy, and 11 of them are just bolt rifles. So your bolt rifle, the one with the underslung grenade launcher, the auto bolt rifle, heavy bolt rifle, stalker bolt rifle, bolt carbine, are all just different versions of the bolt rifle per se. And then the same thing with Space Marine 1 as well, with, you know, bolter, kraken, bolter, relic, bolter, stalker, bolter, etc. Another thing I noticed as well is that in Space Marine 1, there are a lot of weapons that are on the Chaos side as well, and are technically the same weapon, but they have a different name, they look different, they sound different. Sometimes the damage is the same, but then, for example, the Demon Maul is different from the Thunderhammer because it's slower to swing, but it has more damage. So technically that's different because it sounds different, it looks different, and it has a different name, different damage, has to class as a different weapon. There is also a case in both games where there is a weapon exclusive to the campaign, that being the auto cannon in Space Marine 1, where you can pick it up off a mount at certain points in the game, and then the Pyre Blaster in Space Marine 2 in that one mission with all them creepy crawly fuckers. Honestly, right now, just talking honestly, the games are very far apart, so the lore is going to be a lot different, and also this whole Primaris shit, I don't really know what's going on with that. It doesn't really matter in my opinion, but I'm really disappointed to not see the Vengeance Launcher return, and to see specifically the Storm Bolter return / Twin Bolter. That's one of the most iconic guns in the whole series, and you haven't brought it back. That was one of the guns that I'd love to bring back, because I shredded the fuck out of people in the first game with that gun. No idea why it hasn't returned. And the Vengeance Launcher as well, I don't know if that's just like a issue to do with balancing, because it was a bit overpowered in the first game, but yeah. Other weapons that don't return include the Chain Axe / Power Axe as well. The Demon Maul doesn't return either, even though it's basically just the Chaos counterpart to the Thunderhammer. The Stalker Bolter, which is just the Stalker Bolt Rifle now, it's not a sniper anymore, it's just a bolter with a big scope on it. The Kraken Bolter as well, don't really get what the lore point of that is, but it was a really cool gun to use in the first game. Cool red traces came off it. It hit like a fucking truck on steroids, so yeah. The las cannon as well doesn't return. They've got this las fusil thing, which I don't really understand. It's basically just a laser sniper rifle that the sniper class can use. No heavy class version of the las cannon. So in general, a lot of changes, mostly to do with the names and the looks of the guns. A lot of them perform the exact same as what they did, but I do find it a bit weird that they've renamed some of the stuff. They've made them look a bit different, but I guess that's what you get when there's such a large gap between the games coming out. I mean, 13 years is a long time, especially considering the amount of lore this series has. It moves on fast, and I understand that, so yeah. Moving on to the Armour and Customization. The armor and the customization. Oh my fucking god. Now, this is the part of the game that I was the most excited to explore, and it is the part of the game that I'm the most disappointed by. If you go back and you play the first game, or if you've never played the first game, just search up Space Marine 1 All Armors and then click on the first video and compare it to the second game. You will be absolutely blown away by the choice you have in that game compared to this game. I'm not saying that the customization is terrible in this game, but it is nowhere near, it doesn't hold a T to the first game's customization. The sets of specific chapters of both sides, by the way, but I'll get onto that. The colours, the actual warbands and chapters you can pick straight off the bat without having to unlock anything, and the multitude of armor sets individual to your Space Marine that aren't based on specific chapters. It is crazy how much they fucked it up in this game. Just looking at helmets, right? I know, Primaris, I don't really understand what the fuck's going on with this, yeah? In my head, it doesn't matter if they're this Primaris shit. You should be able to mix and match armor. It's all the fucking... It's a video game, right? And they've already established that older armor can be a thing because of the first opening scene where you see Titans in older armor. So it's a thing. They've already got it in the game. Just fucking put it in the multiplayer. But also, just look at the helmets, man. Just look at them. Look at the variation of helmets compared to this game. And then you look at Space Marine 2. That is the same fucking helmet with a different decal on it. It's got a little skull on it. It's got a little 1 on it. It's got a little... Now, most other things of the Loyalists are alright. They look really nice. The armor sets overall, I think, look really nice, aside from the helmets just looking the exact same. There's a lot of detail in it. They have a lot of skulls. They look sick as fuck. Apart from the fact that a lot of it has Ultramarine logos on it, which just, no, please don't add that, please. Because I want to play as a Dark Angel. I don't want fucking Ultramarine. Tangent, sorry. But that's the Loyalists. I am complaining about the Loyalists. Oh my fucking god, let me tell you about the Chaos. Jesus Christ. So, this is the customization for Chaos in Space Marine 2. Have you noticed there fucking isn't any? Well, you would be correct. Because there isn't fucking any. There is no customization for Chaos at all. You can't change any of the armor. You can't even mix and match it between the Chaos. You see this guy right here? You see how I don't like how his fucking head looks? Well, too bad, bitch. And then you compare it to the first game. Oh my god. Call me a heretic all you like in the comments. I don't care. I want to play as this guy. He looks cool as fuck. He's got spikes coming off him. His helmet looks sick. His backpack, literally, you put your hands back there to grab anything. Mate, you're cutting your fingers. I don't give a shit. Look at the amount of armor there is available. Not only at launch, but in general. For both the Loyalists and the Chaos. Whose dick do I have to suck to get this again? Like, holy shit. And the problem that I have with the roadmap, okay, I said I was going to talk about it later, but I just have to mention it now, is that in that roadmap that they've mentioned the free updates and then the season pass updates have not once mentioned Chaos customization at all. They've mentioned Space Marine chapter in 2 segments in the 2025 part of the roadmap. That could mean Chaos because they are technically Space Marines, but from my perspective, that doesn't mean Chaos Space Marines. That means Loyalist Space Marines, right? So, what the fuck, game developers? Are you going to add anything to Chaos at any point? Are you going to add anything to the PvP at any point? Which is what I'd like to get onto now. Now, I did mention in the beginning of the video that I was going to talk about campaign, then co-op, then PvP. But armor and customization and progression directly correlates to the PvP for me. Because in the first game, you had a few ways of playing the PvP and unlocking armor/weapons for your characters. So it worked in a pretty basic way where kill enemy, XP, XP equal level, level equal more level, max level, boom, you're done. You can unlock certain things for the first game by just leveling up and getting to level 20, level 25, etc. Then there are other things you could get by completing specific challenges, going on a kill streak, killing so many enemies with a certain weapon, etc, etc. And I absolutely love this. Not only did it give you something to do in PvP, which you can't really in the second game, but it also gave you a sense of progression when you were consistently unlocking things and going out of your way to kill people with specific weapons or go on kill streaks and then unlocking things because of that. The problem I have with progression in this game, specifically to do with the PvP and the co-op, because they are both together in the customization and progression, because playing the co-op and PvP is how you get the armor sets, is just playing the game. And that's it for 95% of the armor. Now, what do I mean by playing the game? Because in Space Marine 1 to unlock the armor, you just played the game. Well, there were specific challenges you'd have to complete to unlock the armor in that game, which meant that if you just played with a bolter on the tactical class, you couldn't get all of the armor. But in this game, you just have to win co-op or PvP matches. That's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do a challenge, 5 kill streak 10 times. You don't have to kill 100 enemies in a match twice. Nope. All you have to do is complete a co-op mission or win a PvP match. What? So, I just want to talk about the co-op really fast. You're telling me that there is a difficulty system directly correlated to the progression of your co-op character and how you get certain ways to level up your guns. But when it comes to getting the armor, it just has to do with winning. What are you telling me to do? Are you telling me to play a higher difficulty, or are you telling me to play a lower difficulty? Because on one end, I am increasing my mastery because I'm playing a high difficulty to unlock better things for the weapon so I can upgrade the weapon, right? That's higher difficulty. However, higher difficulty is a higher difficulty, meaning I am less likely to win. Meaning, to unlock the armor, I need to play on a lower difficulty because it's quicker and it's easier. and then I can unlock the armor faster. You see what I mean? It's a bit kind of shit. If you had it where in higher difficulties you'd unlock specific armor, one, you would tell people that you were around that, hey look, see this shoulder pad? I unlocked this because I played master difficult, I played the best difficulty and I beat it like 10 times in a row. No, that's not how you got the armor. It just seems like they took a bit of a cop-out way with how they introduced the armor system and then tried to tie it into the progression system. I do believe that it would have been a lot better, specifically for the co-op version of the game, to have it where you unlock the worst armor sets when you're playing on the lower difficulties. So it gives you a reason to go back to the lower difficulties if you just decide to skip straight to the higher ones. And also it gives you a reason to want to play as the higher difficulties, as well as the fact that it unlocks mastery points for your weapons. Makes it so, oh okay, so I can only get this armor that makes me look more badass if I go into a mode that makes me play more badass. So it directly correlates all of the progression together and doesn't make the system feel separated. Right now the system feels very separated and the armor doesn't really feel very special. It doesn't feel like it's rewarding. When all you have to do is win co-op missions, it makes it seem like the people with the coolest armor have just played the longest. They haven't completed anything particularly difficult. I can literally just quickly summarize the PvP so I can actually get onto the co-op, because that's really what matters in the long term here, especially right now. The PvP is very underwhelming. I do feel like the chaos and the customization, as I said before, does affect it a lot. Also, you don't have to play PvP to unlock anything, which makes it so a lot of people don't have to. I guess that's what the devs were going for, where they say you don't have to play PvP or this. They sort of went for the Destiny approach, where you don't have to play PvE to unlock stuff. You don't have to play PvP to unlock stuff. You can just sort of do what you want. But there is no system for weapons in PvP at all, like there was in the first game, and like there is in this game for co-op. And there's also 3 maps. 3 maps in a PvP game. I feel like 6 maps would have been underwhelming, but to have only 3 maps kind of makes me feel like they rushed this, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If they needed to rush stuff, they needed to rush stuff. But what I'm saying is that if it's so bad where you only have 3 maps at launch, and you're not planning to add another PvP map according to the roadmap for at least another 4 or 5 months, you should have delayed the game, man. Like, I don't really care a lot about the people who say that it's just a tacked on mode. For me, the PvP was one of the only reasons why I kept playing the first game, because I absolutely loved the PvP. And people like Bricky can say that the PvP was okay and it was fine. No, I sunk 100 hours onto just the PvP on PC on Space Marine 1. If that doesn't tell you how fun I thought the game was, I don't know what will. The PvP in this game is really fun, okay? And that's why I'm disappointed. It is one of the most fun player versus player experiences I've had in a while, and for it to be this undercooked and still be fun just shows me how good it could have been if they just put effort in. If all of the Chaos had customization, they had their own weapon system, if they had their own part of a ship, or they could just be in their own sort of hub world like we have in your Ultramarine ship, if you could just walk around as a Chaos guy, that would have been sick as well. But just having more than 3 maps, I don't really mind about the modes, because the modes, they pretty much come down to a T. I mean, you've got your team deathmatch, you've got your capture and control, and then you've got your capture and control, but now it's in one specific point and it moves every 60 seconds. That's fine, I like that. I know it doesn't say it on the menu what it does, it's kind of a bit weird. But it's the 3 maps part. I'm already bored of the maps. One thing that I think they could do really quick is get any part of the campaign in a big battle and just slam that into multiplayer and put a few objects in the middle of the map. That's what they did in Call of Duty when they first made it. They just got campaign parts and then they put that into the multiplayer and said, yep, it's just a level from the campaign, but with walls around it now. Go to town. And if they need to do that, they need to do that. Because PvP is fun. And I want to play it more, but there is nothing to bring me back right now. So, yes. Co-op. Talk about co-op. Co-op at this point is easily the best part of the game, and you can tell it's the part of the game that the developers have focused on the most and put the most time into. Not only has it got the most sensical progression system, with any at all, it's also got the best replayability. At this current point, when the game first released, there is 6 operations missions available for you to play, which is sort of like a string in with the campaign because when you play the campaign, there's teams where you send off to go do things. You are that team that goes off to do things. You probably know this by now if you play the game. Co-op is great. I absolutely love co-op. Now, of course, I have criticisms about this part of the game as well, because I have criticisms about the whole game. But first, I'd just like to cover the good parts of it and the parts I really enjoy about co-op. One part is the fact that right now, at this current moment, I would love to just boot the game up and play the fuck out of it. I don't know if that tells you enough. But also the fact that considering there's only 6 missions available, and I've played them all now at least 3 times, I still want to go back and play them again. Now, the difficulty part is probably the biggest bit of that. I want to be able to complete every single mission on every single difficulty. But there's also just the fact that the enemies are just so fun to kill, at least in the first few levels. When you get onto the later levels where you basically exclusively fight Chaos, it can get a bit tedious, especially on the higher difficulties, but I'll get onto that in a minute. The best way I can describe co-op in this game in the operations mode is similar to how I would describe strikes in Destiny. If you've ever played Destiny, you'll know what I'm talking about here. You are put into a PvE situation where a small story is being told. You have to go to an objective, do a certain thing, kill a certain enemy, you know, play out a certain way, etc, etc. Then at the end of that, you replay it again and again and again. Now, the difference in this case compared to Destiny is in Destiny you'd get like random rewards for playing the strike, and then sometimes there were different parameters of a strike, for example like nightfalls where the enemies would be different, or like a slight change would occur. None of that here, which I would love to see, where you play the same thing but something different happens, like a nightfall. But yeah, that's the main vibe I get from this compared to any other game with the co-op, like Left 4 Dead, for example, where it's segmented chapters in a longer story, and then you can play each chapter and each part of each chapter separately, which I would actually like to have been the main case with this, because 6, whilst I said I've played them a few times now and I haven't got bored of them, I will eventually get bored of them. There is no way in hell that I will not get bored of playing the same missions over and over again. The way I get around this currently is by playing either music or YouTube in the background and lowering the volume so I don't hear the same audio voice lines over and over again, the same cutscenes over and over again. But that's what co-op is a lot of the time in these types of games, where you are playing missions with other people over and over again to level up things. It's very satisfying, I feel like, in the way that things progress. Now, the only gripe I have with the actual progression of weapons themselves is to do with general difficulty. Now, you may come at me and just say, well, that's a skill issue, because probably, yeah, it is. It's also a server issue, I think, because I can't get into games with people on high difficulties a lot of the time, even though there's clearly a lot of fucking people playing this game. But let me just relay this in my experience. So I have a level 13 tactical, right? And I want to go into the 3rd difficulty where it recommends level 10 or higher. I am level 10 or higher. I want to go into this. Problem I have is that my weapons are underpowered, to say the least, and to level them up, I need one of them data things, which are in purple, which you can only get by completing the 3rd difficulty, and then you get the orange ones, later difficulties, etc, etc. Whenever I play one of these missions at the 3rd difficulty, most of the time, I can't get a squad, which is 2 other people. I mean, fucking come on, look how many people are playing the goddamn game. But also when I do, we can't complete it. The bullet sponginess of enemies is stupid, especially with Chaos later on, which I did say I'd mention and I'm going to now. Chaos suck to play in co-op at higher difficulties in this game. Just gonna say it. They look sick, they sound cool, the animations are nice, all that shit, killing them's fun when you rip their heads off. But when you shoot into what should be a very squishy demon and they just take the bullets, and they just continue to take the bullets over and over again, and you can't kill them, and then there's about 17 of the bastards, you start to get a bit sick of shooting at them, and then you go, okay, well, I'm just going to melee them. And then the ones with the shields just don't stagger at all, even though this 2-ton fucking Optimus Prime level of heavy Space Marine whacks them in the face. They don't stagger. And then we get onto the Marines themselves, and the Terminators. Oh my fucking god, the Terminators. The Chaos Space Marines are bullet sponges that I've never seen in a video game before, aside from probably the Division. And when I can dunk like 4 mags into someone and they don't die, and then they hit you with an undodgeable move 3 times in a row, It's kind of mad. And then we get onto the fucking Terminators. Holy shit. These fuckers hit you with undodgeable combos, take bullets like they are tiny little 9mm and not fucking massive explosive ordnance, and then say fuck you. Which is why I generally now will stick to the first few levels where you fight Tyranids. Because even with Tyranids, there are equivalent levels of the Chaos Space Marines themselves and then the Terminators. They are at least workable, as in some of them are melee only, so they will only run towards you. They won't fucking teleport towards you, but also the ones that do have guns won't just continuously fire towards you and then teleport towards you and then whack you and then teleport away and then continue to shoot and then also have things at the same time that are running at you and don't have any fucking damage capability but can dodge so many fucking... Yeah, Tyranids are a lot more fun to fight in this game. The Horde mode that they promised for next year, which is basically just exterminators from the first game, cannot come any sooner. I just want to be able to level up my character by fighting endless waves of Tyranids on the same maps like in the first game, because at least every single time it was a different experience, but you wouldn't have to like run around. It was really fun just being able to shooty and then not think about what you were doing too much. You don't really think about what you're doing too much in operations, but playing the same missions over and over again can get boring. When I tell you Exterminators mode does not get boring, it never gets boring. You will never get tired of slaying Tyranids in endless waves over and over again. Or they could do it like the first game where you have to escape from a facility in different levels. Then when you make it to the end, you can get out and then try and do it in the fastest time possible. They could do either or. They could do zombies type modes or they could do that. Either or, please. Give it to me very soon. And that's pretty much it for me. I mean, it's a long video as it is, oh my god, but just one thing before I end it completely. A lot of people have been complaining about server issues, and I did mention that briefly in the co-op thing where I couldn't find a game with people. It is a thing. It's not like I can't connect to games at all. A lot of people are getting that where they'll boot the game up and it just won't let them connect. I think that's more of like a console issue. The problem I have with the server issues that are constantly going on is that I can't find games with people, and for a game that once again has this many players right now, I don't see how I can't find a game with 2 other people in a mode where you're finding the majority of the player base, at least right now. And also, I don't know if this is a server issue as well, but I can't get a single game without playing Chaos. Not necessarily complaining that I am playing Chaos. I love playing Chaos. But I would like to play as not Chaos at least once in the multiplayer. And so far, I have not had a single game where I play as normal Space Marines. I finally got loyalists. Oh my fucking god. This is literally the first game I've ever got playing Space Marine loyalists. What the fuck am I supposed to do? I'm looking for a blockhead. I don't want to be that dickhead that leaves the server every time they get Chaos just to try and get loyalists. I'll just play the game. I don't care. But yeah, thanks for watching. I think it's a bit of a rant today. Very long rant as well. But I'm so passionate about this game because 1, I've waited so long for it to come out in the first place, and 2, I just really want it to be good. Because so many people are playing it right now compared to what the first game had, which I consider very niche. It is now in the top 10 played games on Steam, which I never thought it would be in the first place. So I really want them to make a good first impression to bring people back. People are currently here, and this is a honeymoon phase, but they will eventually start to dwindle out. It's just a fact. People are going to stop playing this game eventually. They're going to get sick of it. They're going to find out there's no more content to do, and they're going to leave. What you need is content to be able to bring them back. And I just really hope that the game devs can do their job and make the game what it really, really should be. Hopefully in like a 1.5 years' time, it will be what I consider to be a great game. Right now, I'd say it's probably like leaning on a 7 out of 10. Purely because the campaign's so fun, the gameplay's so fun, and I have been waiting so long for it to come out that I will give it a 5 just for being a thing and existing. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in a bit. Bye.